Welcome to the monitor or display section of this tutorial. We wanted to show you some additional options if you want to go a little bit further from your MacBook Pro or your laptop to provide an additional monitor in your workflow setup. There are a lot of options out there. It can be overwhelming with all of the features that all of them have, the different types of screens, the different types of qualities, and the price point can vary quite drastically. So in this part, we're gonna start on the lower end and we're gonna cover something that is provided by Acer. So introducing our resident expert, Sin Trong.
Sure.
Would you consider yourself an expert in the display category?
Of course, of course.
Of course. So he is going to be explaining a lot of the features that you wanna consider when purchasing a display and what that's gonna do for you on set. So you went out and got these two as an example
Sure.
of something that's on the lower end. So let's start with this one and kind of tell me about this one.
Sure. Well, just to be clear, Acer is not a bad brand. These just happen to be some of the cheapest displays that we're able to find. So on the right here, we have they're both like around $100. This one is like a 23-inch IPS. And then this is like a 23-inch. It's a newer TN, and they're both around $100.
So you said IPS. What is IPS?
In-plane switching. So it's a type of technology. It's basically the panel technology. So all monitors, they have a panel, and that's the screen that you look at. IPS is something that is preferred by most professionals. It has some inherent qualities that benefit photo editing, whereas TN has also great panels, and they do make great TN panels as well, but it's different strokes for different folks. So if you game, this may be the route that you take. If you do mostly photo editing or video editing, this could be the better option.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but in-plane switching, or IPS, is really a way to consider a monitor that you can see it from about 178 degrees from all the way around.
It has better view angles, so the colors do not shift when you go off axis. Whereas a TN panel, there's a sweet spot. So you kind of have to look at it from straight on. A lot of TVs are TN panels or MVA panels. So when you go off axis of like an LED, LCD TV, you notice that it starts to fade. The colors aren't as vibrant.
So that is actually a big thing to consider, IPS, when you consider having a team of people looking at a monitor. Obviously, everyone can't be 90 degrees onto that monitor. You're gonna have a team of people trying to get their head in, looking at that monitor, looking at their work, whether it's hair and makeup or a design team or the creative agency, your client. So IPS is something you really wanna make sure your monitor has when you pick one up.
Yeah, and luckily IPS technology has basically taken over as the preferred choice of displays. Like if you go to the store, most of the displays that you see on the shelves are actually IPS displays. And they reserve pretty much TN panels just for the low end or really good gaming monitors. So most of what you'll find are actually these guys. But not all PS monitors are created equal, so that's also important to know.
So what are some of the other features?
Sure.
We've talked a little bit about the screen itself. What about resolution? What about ports? What about how you connect it?
Yeah, so these are the same price monitors, and you also lose and gain some things. So for example, even though this is an IPS display, it doesn't have an HDMI port. It only has a VGA and DVI port. So you're limited on connections here.
It was like your grandma's ports. Those are the two ports you'll find on your grandma's TV when you go to Nana's house.
Yeah. What's actually funny is we tried to find a DVI cable in the office, but we couldn't find it, so we actually can't hook this one up today.
Yeah. So there's only two ports on there. So, a lot of the newer monitors, especially an Apple monitor, those are going to have the mini DV ports or the Thunderbolt ports.
Yeah, DisplayPort and HDMI are the main inputs, And for Apple, it's like Thunderbolt, but it converts to like a display port for video connection.
Yeah, so one thing to consider, if you have, this is the 15-inch MacBook Pro. This actually has an HDMI port built into it. Some of the computers that you'll get from Apple and also PCs might not have an HDMI port. So if you want to free up some of your Thunderbolt ports on your computer itself, let's say you only have one, and that has to go to a display, well then you can't hook up your external hard drive to that computer itself. So you're actually going to be losing out quite a bit depending on how many ports you have on the side of your computer and also how many dongles that you want hanging off your computer if you need to go to something like VGA or DVI.
Yeah. Fortunately though, DisplayPort is like the new port that everybody is using, and actually on this computer you have the HDMI, but that Lightning, that Thunderbolt could be adapted to work with just about any display.
And that's actually going away. Now Apple's gotten to the USB-C, so there's only one port, and it's serious dongle city.
Yeah, it's pretty serious dongle city, but USB-C is very similar. It's identical to the Thunderbolt in a way that you could hook up multiple displays. So the new MacBook Pro with the touch bar has 4 ports. You can use any of those 4 ports to convert and plug in a display.
So what is the resolution of these two monitors?
They're both full HD, so 1920 by 1080. So the same resolution. Some of the features that you'll see here, so I'll show you. This one has a VESA mount right here. I think this is VESA 100. So you could attach it to like an arm, or you could attach it to a different stand.
Right, we actually have, this is also made by Tethered Tools itself. You can now really quickly, right out of the box, mount this, get rid of the stand itself, and if you want to create an additional height to your digital workstation, which we're actually going to show you later on in this tutorial with Clay Cook, it's very easy to take something like this, lift it up off a table, and now you're working in a mobile station with both your laptop and also an additional monitor. So you can have like your color palette on your laptop itself, and then a preview on the display port on top, or the display up top.
Yeah.
And then this one
doesn't.
This one doesn't have it. So
you're limited to just the stand that it comes with.
So you're not going to be able to mount. So another thing to consider is, can I mount this? Should I not want to put it on the stand itself?
Oh, and there's another huge difference between the two. You want to turn that one around so you can show them other way. All right. So the big difference, obviously, is the screen texture. So this is glossy. Notice it's very reflective, and this is matte. Fortunately, again, just about all the new displays are matte, and if they're not matte, maybe they're semi-gloss. Nothing is really as glossy as this.
Except Apple computers, they're all real glossy.
Except Apple computers. Yeah.
Apple, what did you do to us? You used to make a matte screen. Remember the 30-inch Apple display? We still use those here in the studio.
Cinema
they're great.
displays, yeah.
Cinema displays.
Yeah.
They're great. So, all right, so from here, if this is something that maybe you have a little bit more budget, where would we go from here?
Well, you could stay with the IPS. You could actually get a decent one, full HD, just a little bit more money.
What's full HD?
So same resolution as this, maybe a bigger size and more ports for a little bit more money.
How important is it? So now that my files are 50 megapixels and they're huge, should I really consider wanting to put that preview on a 1080 display?
Well,
do I want to retouch on a 1080 display?
That's a tough question, because it really all boils down to personal preference, your budget, of course. And just know one thing is, your camera is always going to have more pixels than your display, unless you're shooting like an old digital camera. For example, full HD is at 2 megapixels. There's 2 million pixels on the screen. Most cameras are like 24 megapixels. A 4K display is 8 million pixels. So you're never going to be able to display natively what your camera outputs. It's
It
just how
seems
it
to me
is.
though that the kind of standard is at least a 2K display, right?
Yeah, this is 2K. This is 2K.
Well, if you consider 1920 by 1080, if you're
Yeah.
considering that part a 2K display, but by the marketers,
For like 4K. Yeah,
4K, 2K, 2.7K, how many Ks are there?
So the most popular resolutions right now that you could buy are obviously full HD. Then there's QHD, which is like 2560 by 1440, like the Thunderbolt displays from Apple, or 2560 by 1600, which is a 16 by 10 ratio. Those are really popular. Those are great displays, great resolutions. And then you go up to 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, or something.
That's the 2K display I'm talking about.
Yeah,
There's
so
length and width. The width is what I'm talking about.
then there you got 5K, and then there's gonna be like 6K displays. So the resolution is getting wild, but
It's getting wild, folks.
it's also like you can't just plug in a 4K display and work for a lot of people out there. You know, you have to make sure that your hardware is compatible. For example, 4K requires certain outputs, so you have to have like, you know, DisplayPort 1.2 or HDMI 2.0 or.
What about your graphics card? How important is your graphics card in your computer to support your
Graphics
display?
card is incredibly important because when you're running high resolution displays, in order for you to run efficiently, you need a lot of video RAM, which is why so many computers now have like 4 gigs of video RAM or 8 gigs or more than that. Professional workstations, it's the sky is the limit as far as what those graphics cards will have in memory.
A lot of Apple computers come standard with 2, and you can't upgrade it to 4, right?
Yeah, and it's not that you can't upgrade it.
You have to upgrade it when you buy it. When
You have to buy it with that spec. And just because it's capable of displaying to a 4K display doesn't mean that it will do it well. So a lot of machines, yeah, you can hook up a 4K display to it, but you know, how well will it work? Will your computer be able to keep up with that 4K? Because it has to pump out, for a lot of displays, they're 60 hertz, so it has to keep up with what you're doing at 60 frames per second. And it requires a lot of power to do that. Probably a little bit more with PCs than Mac, just because Apple has really good scaling and a lot of times, for example, like the 5K iMac, even though that screen is a 5K screen, most of the time it's actually running on QHD. It's scaling most of the time, so it kind of cheat that way. So that way, you know, you get the most out of the internal graphics.
So it's actually not 5K sometimes.
Sometimes.
Like web, when is it not 5K?
Web, yeah. So if you have a regular laptop and you're trying to run a 4K display, unless you're doing just spreadsheets in the web, that's okay. If you're going to plan to do video editing, or if you're planning to do Photoshop, where it's really straining your computer, where you're moving the canvas around, you're going to notice maybe some tearing.
Tearing?
Tearing.
Yeah. What's tearing? That sounds scary.
Where your screen, the image on your screen basically breaks apart. A lot of the times it's because your hardware isn't capable of keeping up with your display.
So there's a lot to consider here. So if this isn't confusing, and we know that it is a little bit confusing, I think the best thing to do is first start with your computer itself, look at the specs of what that will support, and then start there. Next, look at the actual hardware that you're going to need, the hookups that you're going to need that go to the ports on your computer, and then make a decision on that based on your budget. I would recommend going to somewhere with a really good return policy, maybe getting 1 or 2 to start out, testing them both, look at the colors, calibrate them, and see if there's any tearing or any sort of lagging that you experience in the testing phase, and then choose the one that's right for you. Okay, so to recap, I know that's a lot of information coming at you, but the first thing that we really want you to consider is A, start with your computer. What do you have to work with? Also think down the road, are you going to be upgrading anytime soon? The second step, look at the hardware of the displays themselves, and also things like the IPS, matte screen, glossy. Again, the Acers themselves, is a good brand. They make a large variety of monitors from the very low end to the very high end. Some monitors are more geared towards things like spreadsheets, while some are more geared towards things like graphics. So this might not be a solution for everyone, but this could get you started out in the tethering market if your budget doesn't allow for it.